If I died today, tomorrow you would come on here and use my death to promote a voting Babylon.
Yeah. So Rob passes on Tuesday. There's no show Tuesday or Thursday. So the third show the following Tuesday, the hunt begins for your replacement. And I'll do auditions. I bring on Hitchborn.
This is a bad idea.
Antile.
Yeah, dude. Even if that gave me an 800-pound squat, man, I don't know, man.
Joshua Charles. And
What on earth is he talking about?
Send out invites to all the current, podcasters, inviting them on. Make sure not to send one to Trent.
Sorry, Rob. I want that co-host spot.
So Wagner won the spot.
Wait, was this planned?
No.
This was not planned.
Rob forgot to take the intro video down from the last episode, but we did discuss if Rob goes, I'm going to find his replacement overnight. And Rob's gone, guys. I hate to break it to you, but Rob and I, it's me and Wagner. Wagner won the spot. He got the golden ticket. That's it.
The Groypers of avoiding Babylon.
Okay, so Rob is feeling a little under the weather. I wanted to talk about a couple of things tonight, and I figured Wagner was probably the perfect person to bring on for. Do you hear an echo in this room? Because
nope,
I moved some things around in my studio and it sounds echoey over here. But so I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to get into tonight. One was Steubenville is talking about merging their diocese with Cleveland, I think, and I had some comments on Scott Hahn that Thursday he wasn't crazy about. So I figured we'd talk about that a little. Then Rod Dreher wrote an article about his trip to DC and talking about the Groypers and how 40% of the Zoomers that work in DC are all secret Nick Fuentes fans.
I need to be so careful with what I say about that, but Dreher, I was reading that earlier and I was like, he really has no idea. Like he's just in his own world right there, and he makes no sense when he's commenting on the Groypers and their placement in like political positions. He's just got no idea. It's so crazy.
The other thing is, I think that Catholic Inc. has no idea how much Groyperism has infiltrated their realm. There's a lot of this going on right now. So look, I have this theory that all the older guys I see like freaking out about Fuentes, and I'm not just talking about like anybody that dislikes him. I'm talking about the guys who are like publicly like saying stuff about the dangers of Fuentes and all that stuff. These are the same guys who all believe in evolution. They all flip out if you question the moon landing. And they all
I know you're getting a little darker right now. I didn't know that you're going that far.
It's evolution, the moon landing. And what's the other one, man? What was the other one? It was evolution, the moon landing. There's like and aliens. They all believe that there's possibility of aliens out there. Like it's something about like the propaganda they all received that they all hold to those narratives. Like they get upset when you question their narrative. So we're going to get into that. And I have a bunch of other things that I want to talk about too, but we'll see where time leads us. So why don't we start off with the Steubenville story?
Yeah.
So Steubenville basically is considering merging their diocese with let me just see. I want to make sure I have the story right. Sorry guys, when Rob's not here, things I'm gonna pull up what I wrote and then share what Thursday said. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. What is this? Oh man, this new chat for
dude, that could have been so bad. You showing your DMs.
I pulled it down just in case, but dude, like the way the new chat is working, I really don't like it. I'm gonna stop screen share there and then restart it. And see, dude, I don't like the way the new chat is set up. All right, let's go with this. Okay, this should work. Let's see. Okay. Add the stage. Okay. So the St. Paul. All right. So I got news for you guys. So I was talking about the Steubenville Diocese now, if they merge. And I said, I got news for you guys. Once Scott Hahn retires or passes on, there is no Steubenville. The St. Paul Center will also close down. There is no clear successor to the Hahn legacy. Nobody has his charisma or ability to captivate. So now I was a subscriber to the Emmaus Road thing he had. And I subscribed to it because I wanted to hear his talks. And then I figured I'd cruise around that site to try to find somebody else that I might enjoy their talk. There isn't really a single person on there that I found like, oh, I can't wait to see what else they put out. And a couple of people were like, oh, what about John Bergsma? Or what about, and I'm like, Bergsma is just as old as Scott Hahn. And he's going to be retiring or stepping down around the same time. So Thursday said, the St. Paul Center is great, but it's not the center of Steubenville, and there are lots of other things that can survive Scott. The College of St. Joseph the Worker, First Fridays on the 4th, the Community Life, Creator Conference, Mark Nelson, Franciscan University, regardless of its problems, is going to hold growth. If you don't live here, you don't know what we need or what we are doing. Now, here's the thing. I don't live there. Thursday would definitely have a better perspective on this with me. My point is that Scott Hahn himself, people may not be going in droves to Steubenville because of Scott Hahn, but Scott Hahn brings a certain level of prestige to Steubenville. He drives donors there. He attracts other professors that they want to come and teach there because they know Scott Hahn is there. Now, you already had Frad leave. Once Scott leaves, I just think they're going to have a bit of a problem over there, especially once this diocese gets merged with Cleveland. I don't see how they maintain their unique Catholic identity. It's really the epicenter of Catholicism in the States. Like, right. It's for the past 25 years, it's kind of had that reputation of being the epicenter of Catholicism because you had everything going on at Franciscan, and they were very closely related to the Catholic Inc. crowd. So all the guys at Steubenville would run through Frad's show. They'd have good associations with Trent and Catholic Answers, and they kind of like fed off of each other. And I think they're going to be in trouble when Scott steps down.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see from at least my knowledge of like kind of some of the dealings of Emmaus, St. Paul Center, the kind of everything going on in Franciscan. I could see the argument for like, St. Paul Center, Emmaus, they're going to have to, somehow change. They're going to get smaller. They're going to, there's going to be some issues there somehow. But, with Franciscan University, I just don't foresee a sort of rapid collapse, especially because like there's this weird demographic shift of people from the coast going into actually the Midwest, and I guess Ohio would be considered the Midwest here. And it just doesn't really make sense to me that it would collapse back into being like a crack den, because that's basically what Steubenville was before, was kind of like, well,
it's still kind of
it's like 50% Catholic, 50% crackhead, a little bit of overlap.
It's basically crackheads, prostitutes, and Catholicism. It's like that's the mix going on there. It's interesting though, because there'll be like a really beautiful house. Like we went there and we rented an Airbnb and it was gorgeous. And next door you see somebody shooting up and you're like, oh, that's interesting, But the thing is that, so if you read the Steubenville the article from The Pillar, I think it was, they are bleeding Catholics at 3 times the rate as the general population.
Really?
So, yeah. So instead of like drawing more Catholics in to make it more Catholic, they're bleeding Catholics at triple the rate of the general population. So it seems like these kids that go to college there, very few of them are making their life there. They're going, they're getting their degree, they're figuring out what they're going to do, and then they either go back home or they get a job somewhere else. But it's not like they're forming a community that people want to stay. They do have some pretty cool like devotional things going on. Like that First Friday festival is awesome. If you've never been to it, it really is pretty cool. But I don't know. I just think, especially with the St. Paul Center and the Emmaus Road thing, Scott Hahn has dumped all this money, all this donor money into this project. And it just seems like he hasn't figured out a successor to that project. And I don't know. Because I talked to Joshua Charles about this too. I'm like, Eternal Christendom right now, like you're the face of it. It's kind of like LifeSite was John Henry Weston. Because we're in such personality driven times.
Yeah,
it's kind of difficult for a thing like that has Scott Hahn is the face of it to continue on after he's gone, unless there's a clear, like, charismatic figure that's right up in the ranks behind him that he's been forming that can take over things and bring the money in the same way he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this happens with a lot of organizations, in the Protestant world, at least. I've seen this. It happens in multiple different institutions, unless there's like this weird thing. It's kind of funny. R.C. Sproul, I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yeah, I've read his books.
Yeah, Ligonier Ministries. But they literally kept releasing books for like 5 years after he died. Like, it was literally for like years after he died, they would keep releasing books of basically just like transcripts and like, rethought out stuff that he had already said and written for like years after he died, because that's really the only way that you can keep things like that going.
Well, we're watching it with TPUSA, right? TPUSA right now, you're watching the face of the organization passed, and they're in kind of turmoil right now and mayhem.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, I was talking, funnily enough, with the Groyping of Catholic Inc. I didn't know I was going to be a part of this since like till like an hour ago, basically. But with the Groyping of Catholic Inc., I was just talking to somebody earlier, and basically my sort of idea behind it is that when it comes to Nick and the America First movement, the Groyper movement, like, they're kind of here to stay. Like, they're everywhere. They're here to stay. It's like a force that kind of just, you're either going, you have to make a decision. Like, if you're going to want to be like a political actor, you're going to want to be involved in these things, you're going to have to make a decision whether you like it or not. And this is something that was kind of, it was taught to us from a very young age with working with the GOP, despite all of their, supposed flaws, actual flaws of the GOP. But we were taught that you kind of have to work with less ideal groups, or groups that you may have disagreements with things. So you kind of just have to make a choice. Like, are you going to work with like Joel Berry, the Babylon Bee? Are you going to be working with, Ben Shapiro? Are you going to be working with like this sort of side of things, which would basically be like a sort of liberal republicanism? Or are you going to work with, this other, up and coming movement? But the one thing, and this is the reason why it was brought to my mind, but the one thing where this could actually change is the very real possibility that somebody just, eliminates Nick. I don't know what words I have to say to not get this video taken down on YouTube. But if somebody were to eliminate Nick, like, that's a very real possibility, in this climate. That's one of the, I think, like, the weaknesses of the Groyper movement is it's definitely centered around Nick. Like, if Nick goes, like, the whole thing is kind of done. I think that basically everybody can kind of agree to that. So it's a very fragile thing, especially, with this knowledge out that probably a lot of people have thought about.
Okay, so it's been a little contentious on our show because I keep talking about this topic. Like, I see the divide right now in the church as being on some of the things that Nick has been raising, right? Like, I don't think we're facing a divide on liturgy. I think we're facing a divide on where you kind of land on this issue. And my perspective is that it's because we're heading towards something where this issue is going to be front and center. And I think Matt going over to Daily Wire plays a big part of that. I think you're going to start seeing two camps form. And it's not going to be trads and Novus Ordo. It's going to be kosher Catholicism, which Stephen Cox coined that term.
And Catholicism.
Versus just because I see it, especially I see it as a trad issue because I see it all stemming from the council, and I see it all stemming from Nostra Aetate and our approach towards other religions, and especially towards the Jews, and with that document with Nostra Aetate. So it's like I see this issue as the main dividing line, and I think that it's because there's going to be a version of Catholicism that softens people to accepting the Antichrist. And that's just kind of how I see it. I don't know. And you don't have an apocalyptic view of it, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, for at least for me, I actually think the divide is is really unfortunate because I'm somebody who's more on the right side of things. Like I've said in the past that, I wouldn't consider myself, a Groyper, despite, how much I am accused of it. But I do say positive things often about Groypers and about Nick himself. I do think it's actually unfortunate that this is something that is, a dividing line in the church, because I'm totally fine with actually, like, believe it or not, I'm actually totally fine with working with people, in terms of, apologetics, theology, etc., with people that I actually disagree very strongly with on this issue, and we'll kind of hash out our disagreements. I really don't understand why. It's very confusing to me. Maybe you could explain it to me, Anthony, but it's really confusing to me why this issue in particular, we're having a differing opinion on matters of policy when it comes to the way in which United States politics works, the way in which governance works. We have very different views of this. I think as a sort of pragmatic move that, I think it's basically inevitable that there is this sort of large portion of Groypers in politics. And I think it's, necessary to not just have this complete, hostility and never work with them and things like that. I think that's completely unhelpful. And then there's other people who think this is the worst thing since, the thing that happened in the 1940s.
Okay. But we have to get into that a bit because like you're saying you're willing to discuss things with people on the other side, but they're not willing to discuss things with you. That's kind of how it goes, right? So you're willing to have the conversation, but I don't think any of them want to have the conversation because I think they know they're on a losing side of this issue. And when you start getting into some of the things that Nick is actually raising. So the way I see it is the people that are like losing their minds over this, all of their fear is we are heading towards another event like World War II. Yeah. Like that's their fear. It's like this has happened before, and as soon as people start getting upset with this group of people, the next thing you know, they're bussing them into internment camps.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't know. I am like we are like that is not happening. Like, I'm sorry.
I mean, if I thought that was happening, like, obviously I would not be. I would not have the same opinion if I like legitimately thought that was happening. But I think that's just insane. I think you have to be a crazy person to listen to Nick, kind of understand what Groyperism is, and then say, "Oh, they're gonna." This is literally okay. And I was just thinking about this earlier when I was reading Rod's article. But this is literally the like 2016, the 2025 version of the 2016 mean tweets thing. Is like Nick says, edgy jokes. He's like one could say, okay, he's rude to this person. He attacked this person when he shouldn't have. Whatever. He takes this position I don't like. But that is completely different than I think he's going to go out and his influence is going to result in the death of millions. Like those are two very completely different things. Hey, dude, I honestly think that when it comes to the liberal, normie, libertarian-esque republicanism, I think that's dangerous. I think that's very dangerous to me, my children, my future. I think it's dangerous to my nation. I think it's dangerous to continuation of my culture, my church. I think it's very dangerous. So I don't know why they have to make a moral judgment of me of who I'm very willing to work with versus not work with, and stuff like that. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so I kind of want to get into something now. I want to play a clip from Gavin Ashenden.
I will not be commenting on this clip.
I want to play a clip from Gavin.
You can comment on this clip.
What happened, Mr. Under the Weather?
The medicine took effect.
Ah, all right. I want to play a clip from Gavin. And I want to get into because this is I want to get into the generational divide on this issue. And this is kind of where I see this all stemming from. Okay, so
it was the sight of the Holocaust that first made me inclined to believe in God. For when I discovered what human beings had done to each other, I really could not believe that human beings were capable of what the Germans did to the Jews. 6 million. And this is a moment when I have to say how much I totally despise the Holocaust deniers who are sick, sick, sick to their soul, who have been invaded by a perverting evil that has darkened their minds in an attempt to somehow dilute the horror of what evil did through human beings to one another. And if there is anything we can do today, it is to resist the anti-Semitism and the Holocaust deniers who have become vehicles of evil, and call them out for it. It's not their fault. Somehow,
I have to interject here because I like Gavin. I like Gavin, but this virtue signaling, standing up like I have to speak about those who deny this event. And it's like most people don't deny the event. We just don't care. We just don't care anymore. Like it's like we're just tired of talking about it, you know? And the older generation, I think they're too close to the event, and it was such a main staple of their education, of the propaganda they were fed, especially back when there was only 3 channels to get your news information on, and Hollywood was just pumping movie after movie out on this topic.
I mean, he literally said his faith depended on the Holocaust.
Yeah, there's this tendency to think denial of the Holocaust is it's like they will treat people who deny certain elements of that event with more contempt than they will people who deny the crucifixion and resurrection. Like it's a bizarre thing to me when I see people acting like this is like for someone to question anything from that time is a level of evil worse than the worst heresy on the planet. And I just like it upsets me when I hear things like that, especially because there are many people who make that accusation who have very messy personal moral lives. So it's like they're judging somebody for maybe being a little bit younger and saying, okay, like this story isn't that much of a myth-bearing load for me, and I'm willing to look at it kind of like past events, you know, like, okay, it's what about the Holodomor? What about, you know, they're getting on Nick for saying things like, oh, Hitler was based or something like that, but nobody would question if you said Julius Caesar was based. Julius Caesar murdered 1 million Gauls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you were like, oh, I
Have
like
you
the
met
aesthetic
French
of
people?
Julius Caesar, huh?
Have you met French people? Kind of cook there.
But it's just interesting because we're far enough removed from that event. So then you get into the Dreer article, and Dreer does a lot of, in my opinion, does a lot of the same thing where he's spending a lot of time obsessing on the anti-Semitism aspect and like what the dangers are of this thing, and he doesn't really get into enough time addressing the actual issues that the younger guys are discussing. And
they'd rather spend more time addressing hypothetical issues that might come up than the actual issues we're living through right now.
Yeah, honestly, I'm blue-pilled on those historical questions that you brought up. So before anybody gets too excited about that, I'm blue-pilled, whatever. But yeah, it is really odd to me that when it comes to people asking, like, there's this instance of all of these Groypers coming into these political communities. They're going in and being staffers, and because this is actually something that I think a lot of people do not give Nick credit for. And I wish that Catholics, especially when we're talking about church politics, that we would be smarter about this. Nick has always been very smart in mixing together theory and praxis, where he will describe, what his political take is about this, what he thinks the plan should be for this and that, doing everything a normal political talk show would do. But then alongside of giving his hot take about current events, something that Nick really excels in is he will actually go and explain what he thinks practically ought to be done. Like, how do we actually reverse this? And he will hammer it into people's heads again and again and again and again of like, okay, well, this is the issue. This is what I think the solution will be. Here's what you can do about it. And here's what I'm doing about it. Here's what, you can actually concretely, affect change. And I think that for a lot of the older people, they don't really recognize this. Like they do not understand. Like Rod's article, I was reading it, and he was acting as if they were just going to have a cakewalk. We're just going to look at all of the staffers' Twitters and find out whether they're Groypers. That's ridiculous. These guys are smart. They're well educated. They've heard about this for a very long time of how actually practically to do this, not get caught, not get exposed. Like these are people who are working as, like political operatives. They're not going to get caught. Like they're not like the YR group chat leak. Like those guys weren't Groypers. Those guys were just like random kind of edgy, young Republicans, which, they shouldn't have been exposed and, had their lives ruined. But, these are not like those guys. Like you're just not going to be able to find all of this dirt on 30 to 40% of the staffers in Washington. Like that's just not going to happen. So I think the reality is like, okay, what is their end? And I think that Rod was just completely ridiculous here too, where he said, oh, they're just nihilists. They just want to burn the system down. Like, no, that's stupid. Like, so sure, Nick will give that rhetoric, but Nick's solutions.
Here was my point the other day. I said
everything.
I said if these older guys keep throwing the accusations they are around instead of actually addressing Nick's actual arguments, they are going to lose an opportunity to mentor these younger guys. And I think that's the hardest thing for the older guys is like, man, these kids are just, they won't listen to anything. And I do think the younger generation needs mentors. Like, I really do think they need mentors. I think even Nick needs an older guy who actually sees things the way he does. But, and what I've seen, even when you look at the Portnoy situation this week, kid threw pennies at Portnoy, said F the Jews, and the kid gets in trouble. Like, watching Nick come out and actually say, listen, this is not the way to go forward. You cannot do this. So people are getting on him. They're like, oh, look, you started something that can't be put in the box, and now you're surprised by it. It's like, no, actually what Nick is doing is toning down some of the crazier things he said in the past, coming at it from a more mature perspective and saying, listen, we're actually gaining a little momentum here. We want to see actual change here. Like, we do want to get AIPAC registered as a foreign lobby. We do want to question whether AIPAC should have this much influence over both political parties. We want to make sure that our foreign policy is not shaped by another nation. These are things that we can actually do, that we can address and get worked on. But I do think that the issue is, if they're not talking about the actual substance of the arguments, they're going to lose any opportunity. So Rob put this post in the
article or the post?
No, the post. So okay, I don't know if it's Dreyer or how do you pronounce his last name? Is it Dreyer?
Rod Dreyer.
Rod Dreyer wants to be a respectable in the eyes of Washington elite. He wants to prove he's not just some boy from Louisiana. So he remains caught between sympathy for the dispossessed and loyalty to the system that dispossessed them. There's something tragic in him. You can feel his yearning to be a shepherd to young men. But the world he knew is gone. The young right doesn't need another anxious essay. It needs leadership, courage, and vision rooted in reality. Dreyer claims the new right wants to tear everything down, which shows he doesn't quite get it. They want something to stand on. They have inherited a country stripped of meaning. Their rebellion is not wanton destruction, but the desperate search for foundation. They obeyed the rules, studied, worked, deferred pleasure, and were rewarded with debt and contempt. They reject the system because they see rightly that it cannot be reformed. They have shed the Whig delusion that history moves toward progress. They know civilizations decay, and that when rot sets in too deep, replacement is the only cure. In this sense, they're closer to the founders than Dreyer could ever be. In the end, his error is that all of Con Inc. and an inability to learn from their mistakes, a failure to recognize that the new right didn't cause the collapse, they inherited it. Until the old guard admits this, every sermon about moral hygiene will be ignored because it's the same tired song of the beautiful loser. Like, that is actually a perfect encapsulation of what I was trying to get at. It's like, they think it's like these kids are just looking at the situation. They're like, oh, we're screwed. Let's tear the whole thing down. That's not it. There's it's almost the system is beyond reform, and implicit in liberalism is its own destruction. And we're seeing that democracy really is just a power game. So Nick is talking about things like, look, if we take power, you don't want to take the libertarian approach. You actually want to use the power you get to bring things back towards a Christian order. Like, if we're not conserving Christian morality, what the hell are we doing all this for?
Yeah, I think that a point that was brought up there, and somebody had asked me, like, they messaged me and they were like, look, I don't get the Groyper thing. Like, why are all these guys, like, why do they follow Nick? You know, why do they join these groups of, you know, these group chats and whatever else? Like, why do they do that? Like, what is the sort of like fundamental reason? And I think that for a lot of them, like, there's a certain hopelessness that they have. You know, they look at the state of the nation. They look at, you know, a lot of the losses in the last, especially in the last 20 to 25 years that we've had. And they're kind of picking up on, you know, an analogy with what Trump did. Like, Trump was, there's a bunch of hopeless people, and Trump gave them hope. And I would say it was false hope for Trump, for sure. People can judge for Nick for themselves. But for a lot of, you know, the younger generation, they feel pretty hopeless. And Nick actually gives them hope that this is a way forward. You know, people could argue all day that they think that this is a false hope. They think that it's not actually going to deliver, et cetera, et cetera. But that's sort of the reason why that, you know, that they're feeling this way.
I think that,
because what hope is there in like the Ben Shapiro message? Like, move.
None.
Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Has Ben
100%.
Shapiro ever given a hopeless person hope? Unless you're from Israel, I guess. And it's even more that, like, everybody's like obsessing on Nick. Like, it's not even about, like, I'm listening to what Nick's saying. Like, I'm not a Groyper. I don't watch Nick regularly. I think that the things he's bringing up are super important, and I'm also watching it split the church right now. Like, with Matt going over to Daily Wire and then watching how his guest list is going to shape out, I'm a little concerned with that. I'm watching. They put David Wood is one of his next guests, and I know they're trying to put Protestant Christians in who want to blame Islam for everything while overlooking any of the domestic issues that we are facing with this issue. Like, this issue. The way that I think, if you're European, it makes actually a lot of sense for me to focus on the Islamic threat. But, like, as an American, you look at the sort of rates in which Muslims are, you know, affecting domestic policy. Maybe there are certain areas, especially like Minneapolis, areas in Texas, you know, certain bigger cities where, like, Islam is a big issue. But, like, for me, I don't even think there's a mosque. Like, I don't even know where the nearest mosque would be. Maybe an hour from me. You know, where I'm moving, the nearest mosque is probably like 4 hours from me. Like, Islam is not necessarily like the big threat for me. So yeah, it makes sense from like a European perspective, but from an American perspective, to fixate on like Islam is like the big issue that we need to be focusing on. It's very like, you know, like
2001 George W. Bush.
Yeah, George W. Bush in a way that I just can't comprehend that being like the big deal.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it is an issue.
And the solution to that is pretty easy too. Stop importing them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just abort.
I mean, it's a simple solution.
People are saying like that, oh, they're just drumming up old tropes and conspiracy theories, but I don't think that. I think that we're beyond that at this point. I think there's enough going on where you even just see the gatekeeping and how they're treating anyone who even questions anything. What they've done to Dave Smith, what they've done to Tucker Carlson. Like, forget Nick. Just people who have a libertarian perspective on this issue, how they're treating them. Like, Nick, I think is bringing identity into the picture a lot more than those guys. Those guys are just looking at it like, oh, we shouldn't be supporting a foreign nation. And like, that's like an acceptable approach to take. I'm looking at it from the narrative that you discussed with Gideon yesterday, where you guys went through and discussed the older brother and the younger brother in scripture and going through all those stories. And I'm seeing it as Christians are told ever since the World War II that they need to love people of all religions and not treat them with any kind of suspicion, but the people of other religions are still treating Christians with suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and you see it happening in real time right now, where if you even question anything, this knee-jerk reaction to, oh my goodness, we're on the cusp of another Holocaust. And it's happening not just from the people that we're talking about, but it's happening from Christians who were raised on that narrative are all jumping to this. We're on the verge of another Holocaust. It's not. No, we're not. No, we're not. It's just not. It's not. That's not going to happen. We're nowhere near a pogrom happening, anything like that. We're at a point where we want to have a discussion on how Jewish power affects our politics and the way our country is run. And when we're telling you guys that our children can't afford, like I live in New York, my son is not going to be able to afford to buy a house. Trump comes out and goes, hey, let's bury them in 50 years of usury instead of 30.
15-year car loans.
A 15-year car loan and a 50-year mortgage. And it's like, you are going to make my son a slave. I'm sorry, but this is not a solution. And these are all ideas that help Jewish financiers and bankers and things like that. Like, you're just amping the conspiracy theories up.
Well, I mean, even if we were to take the sort of like JQ aspect out of it, like if I were to speak to normal Catholics that kind of aren't even into that stuff and are kind of more so just like, I have a sort of like Tucker Carlson-esque sort of view of, I'm not a pure capitalist. I believe that the government can, intervene and actually work towards the common good. I'm a social conservative. I believe that, a lot of these different aberrations which have arisen in the last 30, 40 years ought to be somehow eliminated, whether on the state level or the national level. Like, from people in that perspective, I do think that it's actually a losing game to return to the slop of, the Ben Shapiro sort of crowd. Like, I think that it's like, for example, Matt Fradd, even Trent. I don't think that Matt Fradd, Trent, or maybe probably not Lila Rose. Lila Rose probably is, outside the pale. But like individuals like that, I have no doubt that when it comes to a lot of matters of policy or principle, that we probably have a general agreement, when it comes to, we just want people to be able to afford things. We want a sort of social cohesion. We want, like the moral, fabric to be retained, things like this. But I do think it's a mistake to automatically assume that reflexively, like, we can't in a pragmatic way sort of work with, the new right, that we just have to keep working with the old right and grit our teeth when they're bringing literally OnlyFans prostitutes on to the GOP, national convention stage, to speak, or they're appointing homosexuals, to run major departments in the federal government, or they're downplaying abortion, they're downplaying, sodomy, they're downplaying all of these things. They are, only working for the capitalist class, and they're completely screwing people over. Like, I don't see, like, I do not understand, and I don't think they'll ever be able to explain to me why I should have a moral obligation to work with those people, because, Nick has said this thing or that thing or this thing, and he is sort of emblematic of the new right.
So like I talked to Kale on the phone a lot. I just spoke with him, I think 2 days ago. Him and I had a conversation. So like, I understand his worries. Like, I don't want to downplay that, like, because even with the Portnoy situation, where like you do see kids don't understand the difference in internet culture and real life, right? Like, there's really no appropriate time to yell. Like, if that kid would have just said F Dave Portnoy, it would have been fine. But to just start lobbing F, like, it's just a stupid thing to say. You actually do make everyone look like you are the villain that they're accusing you of being. It's not an appropriate way to handle it. I want to just talk about these issues from both a theological perspective, and I want to talk about them from a political perspective. A political perspective, because I think that actually affects the future of our country, but a theological perspective, because I think that the entire church right now, ever since the council, is kind of in a haze to this issue, and they don't understand the enmity between the people of the old covenant and the people of the new covenant, and they're they're constantly talking about even the people I respect on this issue are always talking about the unification of the brothers at the end of the story. And it's like, yes, that's fine, but that's not the point of the story we're at right now. We're at the point in the story where the older brother wants to kill the younger brother.
Yeah, Esau is coming after us.
He's coming after us, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where Cain is trying to kill us. We're at the point in the story where Joseph is getting sold into slavery. Like, that's just the point of the story we're at. We're not at the point where the brothers reconcile. That will come. And the thing is, there's a way that we have to see this from a Catholic perspective where it can never arise to a pogrom, and it can never arise to violence, and it can never arise to hate. No, but it does have to, but you do have to understand the story properly and where we are in the story. And the thing is, I mean, I can't help but take the things that Maudsley has said about even the influence at the council. And if you see the way they influence our politics, the idea that they didn't influence the council in the same way, when we know the CIA was trying to influence the council too, and you know that the CIA has, that is a very Jewish project. I'll just say it like that. Like, that's just what it is. And they were trying to influence the church. Now, it doesn't mean the church put heresy into the documents. What it means is they lightened language. And the people that came out of that council came with a different approach, to the point where now in the Vatican, you're seeing Leo having sit downs with 3,000 different denominations of religions and stuff. And the whole thing is based upon that narrative from World War II, where we have been convinced that us talking about this enmity between the people of the old covenant and the people of the new covenant, that built animosity. And that is the reason that what happened in Germany happened, is because of Christian animosity. And I think all of us have subconsciously accepted that narrative, and it's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, I think that narrative is absolutely absurd. And I guess that's all that I'll say, that the narrative about, in Germany, there happened to be these Christians at enmity with other denominations, when in reality, it almost seems like it was actually the complete opposite.
You know what your problem is? You're still holding out hope you're getting invited to Trent's thing. Like, you still think you might get the invite to Trent's thing.
I mean, I wasn't given any special message of like, hey, Wagner, you're not allowed here. I'm sure if I bought a ticket, I could show up.
Oh, I know you could show up, but
you want to be on the poster, on the thumbnail.
You're not going to ever be on the poster, dude.
Yeah. If anybody, I saw people speculating about this, if they want to, just ask Trent. I mean, it's not, no.
Wait. But I will ask you this.
On a platform.
I will ask you this. Do you think, because you did go to the Creator Conference and you did meet a lot of people there and you made a lot of friends there, like, I did kind of expect an infiltration from Wagner into Catholic Inc. a little bit, and it's not happening.
Instead, they what's her name? Katie Prejean is a speaker now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Kyle.
But I like Kyle. Kyle is awesome.
I love Kyle.
Yeah, he's great for sure. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really expect that much, to be honest. I'm just waiting and seeing, just being me, always saying what I say.
No, that can't be how it's pronounced. I refuse to believe that.
Taylor said, Americans should own up and say, we screwed over Gen Z. We were selfish. They didn't inherit what we had. Let's help them. Such a man with that humility would be elected president. Yeah, it's like, look, you see the meme going around now about the programs that Germany put in place about families that kept the wife at home and had children would get a 25% discount on their home. Like, you would never see something like that from American politicians. And it's like, if we cared about our country enough, we actually would do that, because you wouldn't want to inflate your population with foreigners. You'd want your own population to, for your own demographics to grow. Like, Taylor's been hammering this down a lot lately, just about the demographics in the West are just on an insane decline right now. So it just seems like there's never any attempt in policy to help the younger generation. And we're dealing with a recipe for disaster, because when you have a young generation who is hopeless because they can't afford to buy a home, they also don't have prospects to get married, because this tied in with all this is the feminism aspect and just how black-pilled all these young guys are on marriage because they don't see us. Like, man, because my son's been coming to work with me, and we have like a 2-hour commute every day together where we talk. My son's 19 years old, and he's like, and he went and visited his friends up at college a week or two ago, and he's like, you just don't even know what's out there, Dad. He's like, he's like, I've never seen degeneracy like that in my life, like where the girls are just gross. Like the girls that go to college are just gross.
Well, I mean, that's not a Gen Z thing. That's been like that for
it has, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so you add that into the mix. So these kids are hopeless when it comes to marriage. They have no hope to buy a home. They have no, because even their jobs that they're looking at getting, they're going to college for 4 or 6 years. They're getting out and they're still making nowhere near enough to provide for a family. There's no hope for a guy to provide for a family where his wife can stay home. It's just you're dealing with a recipe for disaster.
And AI is set to just destroy the job market.
Well, I mean, I think it just comes down to, and this is why sort of like my main argument for why you could never like you could never team up with somebody like a Ben Shapiro. You could never team up with any of these economic liberals in the classical sense, because when it comes to their economics is completely ordered towards the prosperity of the few. It's ordered towards like the material gain, the growth of GDP of a nation. Like that's what their economics is based on. Whereas when it comes to Catholic social teaching, economics is ordered towards the common good. And if you don't have a politician or a political movement that is grounded on that, none of their economic decisions are going to make sense, and they're going to throw us into a fundamental tyranny, whether it's the tyranny of debt slavery, it's the tyranny of the way in which the job market works, etc.
But how about our president comes out and instead of saying 50-year mortgages, say, hey, we're going to cap credit card interest at 12%. So these kids aren't getting credit cards with 26% interest rates.
Yeah.
How about just cap interest?
Throw in jail everybody who throw in jail whoever made up the fact that we could have credit cards with 26% interest.
26% credit cards.
Like who made these things up? It's just so absurd to me that like this is like it's such an abuse and like crime against your fellow man. It's worse than murder in a sense.
The thing is, okay, so like going forward, we're going to let Christian go because he has to record another show, and then Rob and I are going to do a locals episode. And I got some good stuff I want to talk about on locals too. So
this was supposed to be the local side of the show.
It was, but I had Wagner on, and I figured it would be, I figured it would be a good topic for him being here. Let me just see something. Yeah. I got some good stuff over there. So, like going forward, I want to get Kale on because I want to talk to the older generation, and I want to keep the communication open. So it's like, yeah, so do I, Taylor. Right. So Taylor and I both have Gen Z sons. Like my son is 19 years old and he's living in this right now. And I want what was worse was the Ben Shapiro saying move away thing. Right? Like, oh, you can't afford it. You don't deserve to live. You don't deserve to live where you grew up. You just have to move away. It's like for people like Ben, I don't know what his family situation is, but I can tell you this. I have 8 siblings. All 8 of my siblings, except for one of my sisters, moved down to Florida. The rest of my siblings all live at home, like in this town where I live, right? My kids all have their cousins around them. They have their grandparents around them. They have and on both sides of the family. Like my kids have 50 cousins, and like my nephew was over my house tonight. My niece slept over my house last weekend. There's something beautiful about your kids having their family around, as opposed to just moving them to the middle of nowhere because it's somewhere affordable. And now you have no connection to anyone around you. You don't have family around. Like this is untenable. It's evil what they're saying, like, oh, just move away. No, I don't want to move away. I want my children around my family. Everybody wonders why I haven't left New York. Is because my parents are here, all my brothers and sisters are here, and all my nieces and nephews are here, and I don't want to leave them. Like we have a very tight family. I had family dinner at my mom's house last night. Like it's not, it's not something I'm willing to just willingly give up because I might save a few bucks. So no, I'm not okay with just move away if you can't afford to live there. All right. So to wrap up, what do you think happens with the next generation of Catholics, being that, because I'm seeing the divide. Look, I see guys like Taylor, I see guys like us, I see guys like you, I see us all willing to have this conversation about this topic, and then I see the grouping of guys unwilling to even speak to us because we talk about this topic. And I see the factions forming, and I kind of saw them a year out. I like a year or two out, I saw them starting to form. Where
we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah,
And
when
I'm
was
like,
that Philos project thing? That was like April, right?
Yeah, and I think we've seen it even way before that, where it was like look, there were guys who were willing to talk to me 2 years ago that contact is cut off now. Now that could be because I'm bombastic and I've done shows on Lila Rose and I, criticize Matt for joining Daily Wire, but it kind of happened before that. And it's like they're forming a rank right now, and they don't want I feel like what Trent is even doing with his conference is putting together himself up front with all the influencers in the background and kind of showing like, this is my posse. They're basically being told like, you guys are on our side, and I better not catch you guys associating with those other guys. That's kind of what it feels like. I don't know if that's true.
It had that feeling.
It's me putting conjecture on it as my own thoughts, but it kind of does feel like that's what's happening right now.
Well, I think there's two things. One, I think that I would definitely, for the future, I would definitely encourage a lot of the politically interested Catholics who are, genuinely right wing when it comes to social issues, when it comes to economic issues. I would genuinely encourage them to recognize the practical nature of politics and what political prudence looks like, and how you can work with people that you may, have disagreements with, or you may, find problematic, et cetera, things that we've always, kind of practically done with our relationship to the old right back before there was the new right. I would encourage them first and foremost with that. And second, I would encourage a lot of the people who just completely disagree with me and completely disagree with the rest of us to recognize that a lot of these differences when it comes to, the political state of our nation, it is not sufficient. It is not sufficient grounds for you to hinder the work of Catholic action just on this basis. Like if you have somebody who disagrees with you on this, on this issue, you shouldn't just bomb, the effects of the church evangelizing, doing apologetics, all of this. You shouldn't just bomb possible growth just through this disagreement. It's our collaboration with these individuals isn't going to cause another, 1940s event in Germany. It's not going to cause a sort of cataclysmic fall. So there's no reason to, treat those with these persuasions as a leper. And I think that definitely is in opposition with, the plenty of examples from people of the past who have done similar things.
I watched your show with Gideon yesterday. I thought it was an awesome episode. You, Hassan, and Gideon. I thought that was a great episode. You guys just talking about this from a theological perspective, getting into, the nuance of the topic. Now, Gideon is obviously of Jewish descent, but he's talking about it from his perspective. Like the conversations need to happen. I saw Brian Holdsworth had Father Casey on today.
Wait, he actually had him on?
Not a Groyper. Like Gideon's not a Groyper. The Groypers
really don't like
Gideon. But like I'm still friends with Gideon. We still do work together.
They accuse Gideon of being a subversive. They accuse Cale Zeldin of being a subversive, and it's like Cale's like one of my best friends, dude. Like I legit love Cale, and I love that he lets me have my perspective on this, and he doesn't like write me off. Like I talked to him on the phone. He knows him and I disagree on this. But he has some concerns that I think are overblown, and I think a lot of it has to do with narrative control, and I think stories are such a huge part of this, man. Like like the way we see the world is through stories. And when you're molded and shaped in your youth on certain stories, it's like the idea that like you were lied to is it's easier to convince someone of a lie than it is to convince someone they were lied to. You know, it's one of those things. No, but Kale has some interesting perspectives on Peter Pan with it, and things like that. But either way, before we go, I wanted to mention there's a young guy that called into Keith Nestor's show a couple months back, and he was a Protestant kid. He was interested in Catholicism. He's from New York. He's from Long Island. Keith set the kid up with me, gave me his contact, and the kid's been coming to Latin Mass with me. And I saw him this week outside of Latin Mass, and he's like, it's so funny. Like, I started checking your channel out, and then I realized, like, you have all these other Catholics that I really like watching, like Christian Wagner. And he's like, he really likes you. He really likes me. And there's a statue of Padre Pio right outside. And he goes, is that Padre Pio? I go, yeah. He goes, my grandmother was like obsessed with him. So I started looking into him, and it turns out he's my fourth cousin. So this kid is Protestant. His name's Dominic. His father is a cradle Catholic. His father came to Latin Mass with me a couple weeks ago. His father wants to go to dinner with me and my family, with all of us to just go and sit and talk. But his fourth cousin is Padre Pio. The kid's Protestant. I asked him what he thinks of Fuentes. He goes, oh, I love him. So I think he'll get a kick out of this show. But the young guys, and also another funny thing happened. I went to confession at a Novus Ordo parish the other day. And I go in, and a young kid, like 17, 18, I'm there with my entire family. And some young kid, his name is Anthony, comes over and he's like, are you Anthony? I'm like, yeah. In front of my whole family. He's like, I can't believe I'm here talking to you. This is so amazing. He's like, I watch your show all the time. He's like, I watch you. I watch Wagner. I'm always hearing from young guys that they watch us and they watch you. So I think
awesome.
Every time a young guy watches our show, they always tell me they also watch Wagner. So I think you and I, like our show and your show has a very young audience, and I think we have an opportunity to speak to these guys and make sure anybody that is Catholic, if you are starting to question these stories, you have to understand your role as a Catholic is to never treat anyone with contempt. And I think that's a responsibility we have as Catholics to make sure that other Catholics know, yes, you can discuss these things. Yes, you can get into this topic. And yes, there is a real issue here, but the way we handle it has to be different from any other group, because we're supposed to love our enemies to the point of martyrdom.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, don't do anything harmful towards, other people unjustly. And, especially like in the church and within the church, don't, express a behavior that is schismatic. Because remember that schism is not merely separating yourself from the Pope. It's separating yourself from those who are in communion with the Pope as well. And that can easily, lead to a mentality where those disagreeing on these, issues of secular issues of political governance, etc., one can easily, isolate themselves from the rest of the church, on this basis. And it leads down some pretty dark roads. I've seen it happen before.
Okay. So, we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to let you go because you do have another interview you're going to do. Yep. Rob and I are going to head over to Locals. I have some interesting personal stories to talk about over there. My wife and I had an argument this morning, and something miraculous happened. That's all I'll say. I'll tease you guys with that. Something
she
miraculous
said you were
happened.
right.
Close. something miraculous happened. And
she took never mind. No. Nope.
Sorry. All right. Now we'll get into that. And I got a bunch of other stuff. Something happened with one of my sisters, with a girl that she knew going to confession for her first time. And like the girl had all this occult stuff and the priest got her to bring it in. So we got some good stories for the other side. So we will see you guys on the other side. Christian, thank you for semi filling in for Rob. I knew once we got the conversation going, Rob would have FOMO and jump in, but
Yep. You're welcome, Rob, for curing your sickness.
Thank you.
And I'll talk to all you guys later.
All right, appreciate you, brother. We'll see you later.
God
All
bless.
right, Rob, take us out, bro.
But before we go, I mean, well, we can drop Christian here. Do we want to talk about our sponsor?
Yes, we'll talk about our sponsor. And also, guys, hit like and share the show and subscribe. And if you're not Locals members, that's really where we always have the best segments of the show. So join Locals. But Recusen Sellers, if you guys have not yet, go to recusensellers.com. Use code BASED at checkout for 10% off. There is very few companies that are willing to support our show, and this company is phenomenal. They have, first off, their wine is amazing. Like, aside from whatever they do for us, their wine is amazing. Rob drinks it regularly. My wife loves their wine.
You make me sound like wine.
Well, you are a bit of a wino, but
oh god,
yeah. No, go over to Recusen Sellers. They also have fruit over there. Awesome family, awesome company. They ship to most states. There's a couple that they don't. They might be able to ship the fruit to the states that they can't ship the wine, though. So check that
I
also.
imagine so.
Yeah. So
we're
Recusen
actually going to be
Sellers.
talking about the requisite Catholics next week.
Oh, so next week we're doing a show on the reign of Queen Mary, right? Like we're gonna talk about the Recusen Catholics that so when Elizabeth dies and Mary comes into power, and that whole time period, we're gonna be discussing the almost reversal of the Protestant Reformation in England. Like that period where Mary Tudor comes back in, and we're going to get into that a little bit. So I figure we'll do an episode on that, and we'll be discussing where the name Recusen comes from,
How to pronounce it properly.
Since
And
we'll
Brian
get
Grant
into that.
knows how many languages.
Yeah, that's true. So, all right. So that'll be next Tuesday, guys. If you're not Locals members, please support us on Locals. That's the best way to help us.
Okay. And we're going to go over to Locals.
102, take 3.
Action, please.
A bottle of Recusen Cellars Petit Verdot is one of the few things that can make me stand watching Avoiding Babylon. Use code BASED, that is BASED, at checkout